Now, clearly because you enjoy the wine so much. So they are across the hall, across the bridge, and then to the right you have men's, and to the left you have women's. However, you will notice a sign on each of the bathrooms which states quite clearly that Baker McKenzie is committed to inclusion and diversity. Please use the bathroom that befits your gender identity, and I think just follow the signs. Now, to officially begin the proceedings, first I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of this land, the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, and pay our respects to their elders past, present, and emerging. We pay homage to their culture and continuing contributions to the life of the city and to our society. I would also like to extend a warm and perhaps alcohol-fueled welcome to our guests. Thank you for being with us today at Baker McKenzie. Diversity and inclusion is a movement that builds value for both individuals and businesses. It fosters a more creative and innovative workforce. We believe that now, more than ever, everyone in business, including those in leadership positions, must build and foster an environment of diversity and inclusion for everyone, including those who identify as LGBTIQ. Our firm continues to be central to the growth and development of Out for Australia, supporting and being part of the leadership that furthers OFA's vision to create an Australia where any LGBTIQ student and aspiring professional is confident to be their authentic self in workplaces that celebrate diversity. Baker McKenzie will continue to strongly support OFA to provide visible role models, mentors, content, and targeted support to aspiring LGBTIQ professionals, and to strengthen the sense of community among professionals and students. This event this evening is to assist in furthering these goals. Diversity of all backgrounds, race, gender, and belief systems is of critical importance to both Baker McKenzie and OFA. We are confident that the discussion with our panelists, who have taken time out of their busy schedules to be with us today, will contribute to the ongoing discussion of how businesses and others can assist in creating a workplace environment where we accept and include our society's many intersecting and overlapping backgrounds and identities, and show the LGBTIQ community that they can truly be their true selves at work. I'll now hand over to Out for Australia to speak more about our panelists tonight. Thank you.
Hi everyone, I'm not actually introducing the panelists. I kind of have a spiel on OFA. So before I begin, hi, my name's Vas. I'm OFA's National Communications Manager. You might have seen me at an event or maybe online. I don't know, I do all the comms, so I'm the face behind it. Before I begin, I would like to acknowledge as well the First Nations people as the traditional owners and custodians of this land. We give respect to their elders past, present, and emerging, and through them to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders. So, a bit more about Out for Australia, because Baker kind of stole my thunder. We're a completely volunteer-run organisation, and we're supported by our principal partner, which is Baker McKenzie, and also all the other organisations on that banner. So without them, this event wouldn't be possible, and we wouldn't be where we are. Our vision is to create an Australia where every LGBTIQ student and aspiring professional is confident to be their authentic self in the workplace, which celebrates diversity. With that in mind, I encourage you and all the students and the young professionals to have a chat with us tonight or to get involved. We're easily recognizable by our rainbow lanyards. And I'm going to talk a bit more about like the main 3 ways in which we kind of hope to achieve our goal. Like, it's all well to say that we have a goal, but how are we achieving it? So the first one is our mentoring program through Mentor Loop. You might have heard of it. It's really easy to sign up to. Kind of like to describe it as the Tinder of mentoring. You do have to create a profile, and you can match with a mentor who's in your field or who's close to your age, and you can kind of be like, hey, I need your help, and they will help you. And it's a really nice relationship to have. And it doesn't have to be in NSW. You can have a mentor in Western Australia. And I think that's the beauty of Mentor Loop. And the second thing that we do is our events. Like tonight, I'm pretty sure everyone's really enjoyed all the hospitality that Baker's offered us. And lastly, we do community building. And a lot of that comes through our partnerships with Baker, with all of our other partners. And it also comes through online resources that we've created that you can find on our website. So that's kind of how we're working towards achieving our goal. Now, the last thing before I introduce Aina to the panelists is that we do have a live stream. If you look to the middle of the room, there's a tripod. If you're in the field of view, I think everyone's at the field of view now. If you could just be careful walking across that, that'd be neat. And yeah, thank you so much, everyone.
Hello guys, my name is Aina. I'm New South Wales Director for Art for Australia. So first of all, yes, please do be careful with the live stream. So it's important for us that many people who would like to be here today either can't be here today or they are closeted and therefore don't feel comfortable coming here in person. So this is for them a window to chat to you, to find out what wealth of wisdoms you have to share with them. So please do be careful with that. And thank you so much for the panelists to allow us to do that. That's really important for us to reach out to our communities. Okay guys, so first of all, I would like to welcome our panel to the stage. You know who you are, so just come up and take a seat, please. Oliver, Louise, Ross, Shelley. Alright guys, so just a tiny bit of housekeeping to keep up with my obsessive compulsive disorder. We will have about, by the way, can everyone hear me? I should be standing next to my microphone and not walking around and waving my hands in the Mediterranean fashion. Yes, we will have a panel and we will chat about important things to do with workplace inclusion and diversity for about 40 minutes or so. And then after that, so for that time, I will completely monopolize the questions. So I will be the one asking the questions. But after that, we'll have about an hour. So if you have some burning questions that you would like to ask, if you are diversity and inclusion champion back in your place, please, ask your questions so that we can all learn from each other. So that what we would like you to take back to your workplaces after the end of the night is some idea that you can either implement in your workplaces, or if you have an idea that works really awesomely well at your workplace, we would like you to tell us what it is so that we can all learn from you. Okay? And one last thing. I probably should have had dinner before I had this. I think I have given that advice to someone already, but didn't take it myself. So I'm going to look at the notes as I talk, so I really apologize for that. All right. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce our panel speakers tonight. I'm going to start with Shelley Mulhern. So Shelley is the head of client management with Thomson Reuters, but she's also deeply involved with private work at Thomson Reuters. And she is a co-chair of private work, and she strongly believes that a diverse workplace is built on an environment that fosters and embraces the strengths of each individual employee. Shelley's work in inclusion space has been inspired by the lack of visible role models growing up, so she wants others to have what she didn't. And Shelley also, turns out, is a stepmom of twins, a sports enthusiast and social bunny, and a first-time panelist. So guys, please everyone be nice to Shelley. So there are two people with us tonight, who are first-time panelists or panelists. So I'm doing this for the first time as well, so please be nice as well. Thank you, Shelley. All right. Then next up we've got Ross. I'm not going in order just to mix things up. I'm sorry. Ross Weatherby. He is wearing lots of hats, just like Shelley. He's a talent acquisition and inclusion leader at TAL Australia. And TAL, if you don't know, is a leading life insurance specialist for 150 years and has been protecting people, not things. Ross sits on the leadership teams of gender equality, LGBTI plus and Indigenous Australian employee-led networks. Ross has also served on the board of Wear It Purple since 2017. We all know what Wear It Purple does. And in November 2018, he was appointed as the president, reflecting his passion for equality. And then in March 2019, Wear It Purple was recognized as Charity of the Year at the Australian LGBTI Awards. Ross has a passion for developing engaged, high-performing and inclusive organizational cultures that see individuals, teams, and organizations grow. Ross, also, I'm really sorry about doing this to you. He also has a cat who has a Facebook profile, which is really awesome. I love cats too, as you can see. Okay. Next up, we've got Louise McNaughton, who is a senior manager in technology at Macquarie Bank and the program manager at Pride at Macquarie. Louise loves to go camping, but can also be found playing the board game Catan, awesome, I love games as well. Hanging out with her cat as well, I forgot to tell us about that, or going to the local breweries with her wife. Okay, and then we've got Oliver Cuthbert. Hi Oliver, thank you so much for making it here. I know it probably is a bit weird to come into a corporate environment. So Oliver here is a 16-year-old transgender high school student at Australian Performing Arts Grammar School, also a singer from the age of 6, and has wowed Australia, just in case you don't know and don't watch TV, during the Voice Blind auditions with his incredible rendition of Firestorm. Oliver wants to inspire other teenagers to embrace themselves because he knows how liberating it is to feel your true self. And last but not least, we've got Catherine Makarunas. Yay! So Catherine's a law graduate from the University of New South Wales, who, I'm told, officially becomes a real lawyer, I don't know what it means about real lawyer, on Friday at Clayton Woods. Catherine was considered a career as an elite athlete, having spent most of her school years in the pool and competing as a swimmer. After taking an early retirement from the sports, she decided that she wanted to be a lawyer. Catherine spent her time during university dancing and singing in law review and working part-time as a makeup artist, and very much avoiding the smell of chlorine. This year, Catherine has been trying to adult by starting her first full-time job, well done Catherine, moving out of home and trying to figure out who she is by expressing herself through makeup and tattoos. So I have been chatting to Catherine just before. She tells me that she's got 5 tattoos. So welcome, Catherine. All right, guys. So what we might do is open up the panel to questions. So what I'm going to do is ask questions to a couple of you. So we've got a few questions to go through. So number 1, I'm going to address it to Shelley and Oliver, if you guys don't mind. How important is diversity and inclusion to you, and what value does it bring?
So personally to me, I think that growing up, diversity and inclusion in high school, from my experience, is really important because it means you can see people who are like you and then realize, okay, I'm not alone, not feel isolated, not feel like you're different from everyone else, but really feel like, you're part of a group. And you can see someone who is like yourself, especially if you're not really sure who you are. You can see other people like you and see that's okay, and I'm able to be myself, and I can be authentic, and that's all right.
You can tell the first-time panelists were doing their notes here.
I think we all know the business case for diversity and inclusion.
I think we all know the business case for diversity and inclusion.
Oh, don't hold it down. Okay. First-time panelist. I work in technology.
So the competitive edge, the financial performance, attracting talent, retention of talent, and that elimination of homogenous groupthink, you know, within businesses. We all know that business case. But really it's about fostering a more creative and innovative workplace, but also creating a happier workplace as well. Employees feel empowered to perform their best work in a place where they feel safe. And I just wanted to kind of relay a story that I heard only a couple of weeks ago at a Pride and Diversity event that I attended, and it was from a young lawyer, and it spoke volumes to me actually about how important diversity and inclusion is, particularly in the workplace. And he told me a story that he is from a quite conservative family, from a rural New South Wales background, and that his first experience of positive LGBTI inclusion was actually at Baker McKenzie, so in the workplace. And I just thought, that's it, that's exactly why we do it, and that's why it is important that people are having their first experiences in the workplace.
Awesome, thank you for that, Shelley. So this one will be for Louise and Catherine. In your experience, are there any positive steps or acts that we can each take at an individual level, or is there anything that we should refrain from doing to contribute to more inclusive environments for LGBTQ people?
Okay. I think one of the main things that sort of comes to mind when faced with that question is around being really visible. For myself, doing something like this, I'm also a first-time panelist. It is really important to sort of stand up and show that, you know, I have a successful career, that I'm, you know, an out bisexual woman, and I think it just being visible, and it might just be, you know, a rainbow lanyard, for example, like our friends have on, but that sort of, that way of showing people that it's okay. Things like Wear It Purple, like that whole idea of, you know, being really visible and showing our LGBTI community, friends that, you know, this is a safe place, you're okay here. I think, yeah, it can be really, really powerful.
I definitely agree with that, and I think visibility also should cross over to allies as well. So if you are an ally, be the most visible ally you can be. So coming to these events in the workplace, you know, I know our work, we have little badges, or I've got my rainbow flag in my office, and then I think the visibility piece is definitely the most important thing to be, and especially as a woman, there's not as many female role models to look up to. There's a lot of out gay men in my workplace, and I know at all other kind of LGBT, whether it's a group or an event, and so yeah, as a queer woman, I think to be the most visible you can be, because that will help other queer women be able to come out as well. And I think in terms of what not to do, don't be afraid to ask questions respectfully of others. So whether it is about what language is appropriate or things like that, don't be scared to ask someone about that.
Thank you, Catherine. This is actually a really good point. At my workplace, we had Pride and Diversity just come out and talk about the importance of allies this afternoon, and they eventually said that it's important to be an ally. So if you see someone speaking up in the workplace, you need to help out, because it can't all be just us speaking up. It's just exhausting having to fight it. So having allies is really awesome. Thank you for that, Catherine and Louise. Oliver. Oh, go on.
I guess just to build on the visibility piece, I think it's very, very important that we're not forcing people to be visible without them feeling comfortable and wanting to be out in that way. So I guess encouraging people to step up and, you know, have that confidence to be out, but if they're not at that place, it's really important that you don't, you know, push them there. You know, there's a lot of history in our community, and people come from all sorts of different places and situations, so we just need to keep that in mind as well.
Thank you for that, Louise. Yes, that's really important. Oliver, given your lived experiences, what do you think Australian schools specifically could do better to make them a more inclusive environment for LGBTQ students?
Yeah, well, I think that there just needs to be more education, really. I know that a lot of younger people aren't really educated on LGBT issues, and if they are, it's more just knowing different sexualities, but not being very educated on gender, which I think is a really big thing, because a lot of people who are ignorant or hateful are just because they're uneducated and they don't understand. So I think a massive thing is just, you know, teaching it in classrooms at a younger age, because a lot of kids just don't know, and that makes them act in an unfair way to students who identify differently just because they don't understand and they don't know. And I also think just events like Wear It Purple and things like that, definitely they have to, you know, promote that and show kids, okay, this is okay, and as a school we support that, and as a school, as a student at this school, you like can't be hateful, that won't be tolerated. And also further from that, I just think that it should be less tolerated when people are hateful, and teachers shouldn't just, you know, turn away and say, you know, okay, they should, if they see anything happening like that, any sort of hateful speech or anything, they really need to jump on that and say, this isn't okay, this isn't how our school functions.
Thank you for that. Oliver, do you find that schools do this these days?
I think some schools do. I'm lucky enough to go to a school that's very accepting, but I do know that there are a lot of schools that still aren't, which I think really does need to be worked on. Going to a performing arts school, everyone is very accepting, which I'm very lucky to be in that sort of environment, but a lot of kids aren't, which is why I think it's important to speak out and educate people and say, yes, I am lucky in my situation, but there are people who aren't, and I want to speak for them.
I think from a Wear It Purple perspective, I absolutely agree with everything Oliver's saying, and we had almost 800 schools celebrate Wear It Purple Day officially this year, and that's the schools that told us that they were doing it, and they said they were going to reach collectively over 600,000 students, which is an amazing thing. But we know that the school population is much bigger than that, so we're only talking about a slight fraction of the schools that are in Australia. Everywhere at Purple Day, we hear the stories almost on the day or in the weeks afterwards of students that have run their own campaign, and then they've had, you know, an emergency meeting with the school principal or welfare officers that's been called, and they've been told, no, we can't actually push one group over another, or push pro-gay propaganda through our schools, or pro-LGBTI, etc., etc. So the education, I think, really needs to start at all levels, but actually take place at the top. So there's something that we need to do around the principal level and head teacher level to provide them with an opportunity to learn from each other and get a bit competitive. If we think about workplace inclusion, that's where this all started. You know, obviously we want to do these things for the right reason, but a lot of us at that time looked at this and thought, what's going to drive the most amount of activity here? And that's putting a high-performing CEO in front of a CEO that does nothing around LGBTIQ inclusion. And if they're a competitor, even better. Or if there's someone that they admire. So there's something that we need to do collectively with our influence as people in this room, but also another job for us from a Wear It Purple perspective and other youth organisations to look at what we can do to influence at that level, because they're a big barrier and they can shut it down very, very quickly. In what is, you know, Wear It Purple Day is not a confrontational day. It's not controversial. It's not meant to be. It's simply about showing support for LGBTIQ plus young people, that they're okay just the way they are.
Thanks for that, Oliver and Ross. My daughter is in high school, and after the Wear It Purple Day, she came back and said, Ina, she calls me by my name, what's the difference between pansexual and bisexual? I was like, woo! So thank you for doing that. Yeah. So Ross, since we're here, and this will be a question to you and also Louise, Do we consider that building a diverse and inclusive environment, particularly at work, but also in education, since we started talking about it, is a top-down or bottom-up approach?
I firmly believe that it's both. You definitely need senior executive support for a programmatic or enterprise-wide approach to happen, and a lot of the time for some funding or budget to do some of the activities that you want to do within the workplace or within your school. But without without grassroots support, you wouldn't be able to execute as well and nearly as much as you need to do. Plus, you wouldn't hear the voice of your people. So if we were only working, if organisations that are great, like Pride in Diversity, as part of ACON, Out for Australia, many others, if they were only working at the senior executive level, then they're not necessarily hearing, the CEOs and execs are not necessarily hearing the voice of their people in the matter. So the risk is that they execute something that's a bit more of a performer approach rather than actually taking a step back and going, okay, so these are some of the best practice activities we need to implement as an organisation, but what's the first, the second, the third or the fourth thing that we're going to do as a business? And are there some of the things that aren't really necessary for us because we're already there? And you won't know that unless you ask your people, or if you don't ask students or ask teachers, people that are working at the coalface, people that are with your customers as well. So quite often we can think about workplace inclusion being all about employees or inclusion in schools being all about students, and mostly it is when we're talking about schools because they're the end customer. But in the workplace, a lot of the time you can get sidetracked to not talk about the customer, and the reason why we want to create a diverse and inclusive workplace where everyone can just bring everything to work, bring all of their skills, their opinions, their challenge, and contribute that to the table is because we want to do better things for whoever is the end customer or end client, because that's what we're here to do as a business. Beside all the factors around retention and engagement and people feeling productive and being just well as an individual. So I think it is both a top-down from a mission perspective, but also very much a bottom-up.
Sorry.
Is it me?
Yes.
Did you want to?
Oh, I was just gonna say I definitely agree with that. I think having the top-down approach is really important in setting the vibe of the organisation. So I came into my job as a graduate 9 months ago, and seeing the senior leadership team being visible allies at events, and then seeing partners who are out, both female and male. That makes me, as a young lawyer and new person of the organisation, feel like, okay, that's cool, now I can be involved too, and it's something that's being taken seriously by the leaders in the firm.
Yeah, I agree. Both, my thoughts are in line with both people there. I think with the sort of top-down, bottom-up, again, there's never one answer for this. I think it does need to come from both ways. I think it's important to be able to link those two as well. I think that those executive leaders can learn a lot from the staff that identify. The staff are at that grassroots level, and it might be, it might be a question like, oh gosh, how do I say this, or how do I address that person, or have a safe place to ask those questions, which might be a bit un-PC. I think having that sort of relationship between that leadership team, so that they understand the lived experience of somebody that identifies, because that's going to give them that sort of oomph behind what they're saying, like they can really understand, what that's like. So that's sort of what I'd say in addition to, great words.
Thanks for that perspective, Liz. Next question that I have for Catherine and Oliver. So we have spoken about what organizations could do to make their workplaces better for diversity and inclusion. but what would your advice be to either recent graduates or high school students who are just about to enter the workplace and they're closeted? What would you give them as an advice?
I think what I would say is find your community is a big thing. In a lot of different workplaces there are those LGBT plus groups, and even if you're closeted, just going in and saying you're an ally if you're not comfortable stating your identity yet, and just getting to know those people, seeing the support you have if you do choose to come out is a massive thing, and seeing that you're not alone, having a whole group of support to back you up is a massive thing, even if you're not ready to be expressing that way. And even if it's just one person, like seeing, okay, this one person is a part of that group, I'm going to be able to be close with them and learn from them and be able to see, okay, this is a safe place for me to be.
Yeah, definitely. I think what I went through as a uni student looking for places to work is you really need to talk to the people at those organisations. A lot of corporate firms will have LGBT groups, and that's fantastic. But you don't actually know what they're actually like unless you talk to people who work there. So whether you're closeted or not, I think do a lot of research and not just seeing, oh, does this place have a official policy, but go to careers events. That was the best way for me, because I would see people, at careers fairs with booths, and they would have, badges, and to see that kind of visibility and know that people were very visibly allies, that kind of gave me a better sense of what the culture was going to be like at a place. And also, from a career perspective, you just kind of figure out what people do in these big corporate firms, because sometimes it's not very clear.
I'll second that. Being at a life insurance firm. When I really loved your comments about your experiences coming into an organisation as a grad, and I think it's so important for organisations to provide the opportunity in a safe environment for potential new recruits to ask those questions. And so I personally love when we go out as TAL to those career fairs and opportunities, but also when we recruit for interns, is we invite a whole bunch of leaders and individuals from a whole range of different roles across the organisation to a networking section that's part of all of the intricate rotations that I try to stay out of. That is the selection process for interns and grads, so they can come there and often just talk about what they do, because I always hate it that we're saying, here's a whole menu of people from TAL, go and ask them about X, Y, Z, but it's just better if they talk about it, because some people will be really afraid of saying, oh, what's that pin that you're wearing about, that rainbow pin or lanyard? They still want you to just talk about what you do and what you're involved in. I think it's so important, and it does lead to results. Before TAL, I was at CommBank, and I was involved in grad recruitment, just as someone that got to, I can talk about CommBank. And I was wearing the Unity pin, which is the LGBTI plus network at CommBank, and one of the grads that we eventually recruited later told me, who's now a member of Unity, that was one of the leading things that led him to basically accept our offer when there were competing offers. The fact that I was wearing it, but also talking about what we did in the space, and that I was on the Unity Council. So it does lead to results. It is really powerful. Selfishly, the results that I like as someone in talent. But if we can help connect someone with a workplace and provide them with a really good experience and where they're going to flourish, then that's the best thing ever.
And I think for people who are in recruitment, grads these days really care about that stuff. We get a lot of different, exciting work at whatever firm you go to, or whatever bank you go to. You're going to get similar kind of work, so it's about the culture of the place. And I know a lot of people ask me, the recent clerks that came through, you know, what are the diversity policies that the firm has? And that's something that, you know, young people really are interested in and want to learn about when they're coming in to the workplace.
Give it a guys. And the next one, since Roxy started again, it's for Ross and Shelley. Are you guys ready? Do you think there is anything different or additional that organizations and institutions can practically do to have successful diversity management?
Yeah, I do. I think there's 2 or 3 things actually that sort of come to mind for me. One of them is really developing LGBTI leaders through leadership training, sponsorship of LGBTI talent, and specific talent development programs for up-and-coming LGBTI leaders. I was actually lucky enough through my company Thomson Reuters to attend a leadership and role model training session in London, where we partnered with Barclays Bank, and Stonewall hosted the 2.5-day training session, and it really enabled me to step up as a role model and as a leader in my organisation, and step up into that co-chair role that I was kind of a little bit nervous about taking on. This was about 2 or 3 years ago now, and so that is something that really is going to distinguish an organisation and provide that LGBTI talent to come through and shine and be recognised too. The other thing too is like understanding intersectionality and the, you know, the multiple experiences of discrimination that someone from a diverse LGBTI group can have, and giving opportunity to, particularly Australian corporations are not particularly good at doing.
I completely agree with all of those, Shelley. I'd say on the talent piece around conferences, they're great opportunities, and more organisations I think would have a better business case built for their employees to go on those meaningful experiences, or have those meaningful experiences if they properly were tracking their data. So I think many organisations would still be running engagement surveys that are confidential or anonymous, that pick up the sentiment of people and how they're experiencing the workplace across all sorts of different communities. But how integrated is the data collection in your talent approach? So do you know who has self-selected, who is an upcoming leader, who's been identified as someone who could be unlocking more value for the organisation? And then are you able to target and link them to those opportunities from a people and culture or HR perspective? The other thing I'd say that organisations, but it's more about the individual, organisations can help with this though, is helping leaders and everyone to be a little bit more considered and authentic about how they do inclusion. Quite often, you know, we think, okay, I've got the cufflinks on, I've got the pin, I've got the flag on my desk, I've updated my email signature, so I'm done. I'm an ally, I've done the ally training. But how can I be a better leader or a better ally? It's about thinking about just getting to know the person, the people that are in front of you. The most authentic activities that I've seen in the diversity space come out of leaders truly leading authentically and just considering who's in front of them, who's part of their team, rather than all of the different actions that I've got to do, because that gets pretty overwhelming, and then they start to overthink it, and then I think, okay, I'm going to get something wrong with this whole list of things that I need to do. So just simply investing the time to get to know your people and then acting a little more consciously, I think is going to bring about a much better result, feels more natural anyway, and is kind of part of some of the best leadership development that I've seen. So it's just thinking more strategically about how we develop our leaders to be more inclusive.
Thank you for that, Ross. By the way, guys, a bunch of us from out of Australia went to this talk by an Aboriginal lawyer, Mark McMillan, last week, I think it was, and he said something really powerful about workplace inclusion. He said that true inclusive workplace, they're not like a lighthouse, which is a safe refuge, but they're like a beacon. They actually attract people from our community, so that is pretty powerful. Thank you guys. Now I'm going to stop asking questions and open up for you guys. And the way it's going to work, you either have to shout out your questions or you come closer here. Yep. Oh, alright, cool. Alright, never mind that. So just if you have a question, raise your hand and someone will come up over there.
Yeah, I've got a big voice. Look, just looking around the room, I'm one of the oldest people around here, and it's good to see a lot of young people. But my question is, I've worked in corporate environments, very male-dominated corporate environments, and it's great to have your rainbow flags and your dares. But people my age and older find that confronting. Not because they're mean, or not because they want to be hateful, because they don't understand. They've come from a different era. How do you include those people in these discussions without offending them? Because it works both ways.
Very good question. Thanks for that. Anyone wants to take it first?
I'll try.
Thank you, Louise.
I think firstly, not to force them to do anything they don't feel comfortable with. I think it needs to be looked at as more bringing somebody along the journey and understanding that people are starting out this journey at different points, no matter what age they are. So being able to engage them and understand really well around where they're at and ask those questions to get an inkling of how they can be engaged and how you can help them get to a point where that's okay, or they're, they might just be okay with how it is, but to get that sort of broader understanding.
I completely agree. I think you've got to meet people where they're at and think about what their experiences are. Not everyone, even part of our community, not everyone's going to want the rainbow flag on their desk or on their signature block. So having an understanding that we're all not going to execute our gayness, queerness, how proud we are in the same way, and neither are our allies or our potential allies. And if we assume there's no malice in this, there's different ways that allies want to be able to operate. I think we need to be able to reach those people and help them understand what some of those symbols are like, which is an opportunity for the network within the organisation to be able to bring people together, to kind of roadshow at leadership team meetings about what the network is, because we know with opt-in sort of LGBTI inclusion ally training, you're going to get all the people that are already putting their hands up and saying, I'm an ally. You're not going to capture the people that are saying, I am inclusive of all people, but the flag, just for whatever reason, it's feeling a bit uncomfortable to me, and I'm never going to wave one, so I'm probably not going to go to the ally training. So finding a mechanism to get in there and to be able to talk to people about what inclusion is all about in the LGBTIQ space is really important. Thinking strategically about those opportunities and how to capture people, it's not the right word, how to engage people that aren't going to be like a moth to the LGBTI network flame.
Yeah, I think we need to practically in terms of, you're right, because I think a lot of events we have, they attract, people that we're just preaching to the converted. So I think we need to think about how can we put on events that are going to interest everyone, and also how do we market these events. So being really clear in emails, like this is an event, not just an event for the LGBTI community, this is an event for everyone. And then I always like the idea of having some like an interesting speaker. Like I went to the Property Council of Australia lunch this year, and the keynote speaker was Magda. Everyone loves Magda, and she doesn't know anything about property. Well, yes. But she's a fun character, and that appeals to everyone because she fill a room, and people are engaged by her. So, I mean that's a big example. But in a business sense, have someone like Ellen Joyce who can give you business, his history, and I think we need, that's obviously this very great, it would be great if we could have all these amazing people come all the time. But yeah, I think it's more about how can we create events that are inclusive and have a role model that is LGBTI, but not necessarily be about this is a gay event, and then market it in that way so people feel like I really want to come to this because it seems really fun, and then they're there, and then hopefully can get them into more events.
I mean, you're all very fortunate because you're all from professional firms. I don't think this conversation is as easy in construction companies or in transport companies or non-professional environments. And I think that's where the diversity and inclusion challenge is greatest.
We had so earlier this year, Clayton News put on a LGBT conference for women, which I know Louise and Shelley were at as well. And we had heard something interesting from Woolworths, and they were saying the same thing. Like, it's easy in a corporate space where everyone's in one building, but how do you reach out to thousands of stores in different parts of Australia? And it was really about giving people all the information they need and saying, this is available, you can do it, you don't have to do it. And then you get, and they were saying something like, first we're at Purple Day, they had so many, like 400 stores participate, and then the next year they had 1,200 stores participate. So if you're giving people all the information and all the resources that they need, and letting them choose. Yes.
I also think in some of those, in some industries where they've been later adopters, or where there are some specific challenges because it's been for a long time quite male dominated, it might have been regional and rural focused and outside of the gay bubble that we all get to, most of us get to live in here. There are some great networks that link those organisations together that have commenced. So this year, Interbuild commenced for the construction and property industries, and they're actually, they've had quite a lot of activity and early successes, and they've built quite a brand for themselves already. So that would be worthwhile if you are in construction. Or property. No. But there are a number of others. So just Google Inter anything, because there's an interbanking, an inter-insurance, an inter-firm, an inter-build, an inter-tech. Into water, I saw. No, there was a group that set up a Pride in Water the other day, which is
awesome name.
Which, like your Southern Rural Water or Sydney Water. So these types of groups are starting, which is helpful because it helps that competition piece, but also helps to not recreate the wheel and to find some of the few more vocal allies that are within those organisations, and even a few out people that want to help lead it. So banding together external to your organisation.
I was just going to add, I don't want to belabor the point because I feel like we've all had our piece here, but I was talking about it earlier just in the room, and just having kind of soft awareness pieces that people can voluntarily attend, where you've got someone who's able to express their experience, say this is my experience as a gay person or as a trans person, or whatever it might be, and that really just hearing somebody's experience really means a lot to people to hear it and go, oh wow, I'm gay friendly, but I didn't realise that you went through those difficulties every time you entered a room and you met someone new, that you had to think about, am I going to come out to this person? They didn't understand that people have this kind of difficult, voice in their heads every time they meet somebody new. So just something like that can often be a good way to break the ice in an organisation.
Cool. And thank you for that question. Talking about tough audiences, I come from Russia, where homosexuality is illegal. And I find that just asking questions to understand where the hate or misunderstanding comes from can be really powerful. Sometimes it's just the ignorance that stops people.
Yeah, it's an education, because this discussion, and I'm sorry to over the point, this discussion, it's about sexuality today, but 50 years ago when my parents came from Hawthorne, it was about race. was about the White Australia policy. So, you know, it's, you know, that was educated and that moved on, and now there's this discussion. So, you know, it's an important piece, but it's important not to create divisions.
Cool. Any other questions? Over there?
My question is for Oliver. I'm going to be a teacher soon, hopefully employed ASAP. I was just wondering, was there any teacher or staff member that made you feel the most supported in your journey?
Yeah, for sure. At my school, I have a teacher who's very openly supportive, and I think that's a massive part. Like, even things like, I mean, when I came to the school, I had told all the teachers, I told the principal who had told all the teachers there's a transgender student coming to the school. This was before I'd medically transitioned, so they had to say, you know, address him as male, address him by this name. And the things that just really made me feel really comfortable was things where, like the tiniest little things, like I'd be talking with a couple of guys and the teacher would just say, hey boys, come here. And just little things like that, just showing, okay, this person is supportive, this person isn't judging me for my identity, as well as if students make comments that aren't so supportive, calling them out. I think the times I've felt the most safe and supported at school is when people use slurs, insults and things, the teacher's saying, that's not okay, we don't tolerate that here. And another experience also is I had someone asking really invasive questions to me, and I had a teacher pull me aside and say, is there anything that you want us to do about that? We will step in and we will talk to our student if needed. So I think just always stepping in and making sure there isn't any discomfort for students in the community.
Awesome, thank you for sharing that, Oliver, for all of us teachers. Any other questions?
I just have a question about the lack of women in the group. I'm wondering, and on the panel, I'm wondering how we can engage women in conversations.
So Poisey has a question that she's going to repeat.
Just a question about engaging women on this conversation, and how we can make them feel, you know, supported in contributing and being comfortable.
Oh gosh, I had a thought and it just left me. Yes, I think it was Catherine who was speaking about role models earlier, about when she started and could actually see visible role models, women that identify who are further higher up in the organisation. I think we need to really push that. If you are a leader and you are able to be out, you should be out in the crowd at your organisation and sort of walk the walk and talk the talk, and increase visibility that way. Look, I think that there's been a few studies into it, and I definitely know across different organisations that I've worked in, it's a lot of the time it's the gay males that are involved, and I don't know everybody's sexuality here tonight, but there's a lot of men here tonight. So I think it's a hard one, and there's a lot of people looking into it.
I think also a lot of allies are women, like in contrast. So allies are straight women. So as a straight man, I would suggest becoming an ally and being a visible ally. And that doesn't encourage the women. That was anyway, separate point, but another issue.
I think you're right there, though, Catherine, because when I first joined our Pride at Work committee, I was the only woman on the committee, and I was the only gay woman on the committee, and there were like 10 women on the committee. And I think there's 3 of us now. So it's happening, and it's because I do feel like it's because I'm being visible and I'm out there. And maybe sometimes, and I did do this, and maybe it's not the right thing to do, but sometimes you do have to go, hey, can you help me out here? And I did do that to a couple of women in the organisation. Said, come on, like, you know, there needs to be more of us. You need to represent. Help me out here. And they did. I don't really know what the answer is to getting more out women visible. We know it's an issue. There has been studies done, as was said by Louise. I'm not sure what the answer is, but you know, if you are able and feel capable, step up and be that role model, be out if you can.
Yeah, I think PwC did the research a piece of research a couple of years ago called Where Are All the Women? And it was because of, you know, I'm seeing better representation actually in this room than I had at an Out for Australia event though 2 years ago or 3 years ago or back when it was Out for Sydney. So I just want to acknowledge the progress that the organisation has had in attracting a more diverse audience, both from a gender perspective but also cultural diversity. But in PwC's report they found the single biggest recommendation was around role modelling. So I'd echo everything else that's been said. This isn't about forcing people out to come and sit up on a panel or to be a public role model, but if you do feel like you can and it would benefit the results show that it benefits other people immensely, we'll see some significant changes. But if we're thinking about events and planning and all of that type of stuff, just check on who's organising those, who's been consulted. You know, are we holding it at the right time, at the right place? Do we have the right content that's going to be attracting people? So if you have a committee that's largely, sane, then you're going to be creating an event that's for that type of person, by and large, not for a diverse range of people.
Hi. So I'm speaking from an Out for Australia perspective. I wanted to jump in. Yeah, I want to echo what Ross has said. We have come a really long way in terms of the representation that Out for Australia has. I reckon 2 years ago this room would have been 95% men, or maybe even more. This isn't to excuse the fact that there aren't as many women in this room as there should be. I'm not trying to make an excuse on behalf of OFA, but we hear you, and it is one of our really, really crucial goals that we want to change. So we held a women's event earlier this year, and that probably had the largest turnout. Like Ross said, it was targeted towards women, for women, by women. And that had a huge impact on the people who came. So yeah, I just wanted to add that.
Did you have anything to add?
Just from Vegas' perspective, we're also fighting fire.
Thank you so much, Symposia and Anne-Marie. Like, it's really cool to have, you know, 2 awesome women organise this event as well. So it made me feel more comfortable as a woman to be included in the event.
Don't worry, guys, act like men.
And I also want to echo what Shelley has said. Often in your workplace, do ask a woman. Sometimes we just so filled with doubt compared to men, and asking is a very powerful way. Any other questions? Yeah, go for it. Oh, hang on. So, ma'am?
She'll end better than me anyway. True to form, I'd like to ask a question from a bit of a cynical perspective. I think, well, what we can see is that in the current climate, and this is actually a good thing, there is a momentum towards supporting LGBTIQ rights, and a lot of people are taking it on board. But people also see it in terms of, well, this is something that's an important social issue and we should adopt it, regardless of whether they are supportive of the underlying issue or not. The question that I wanted to ask is that, have each of you at different points in time, and not needing to name names, have you encountered situations in which you thought support was inauthentic? Does that bother you, or is it fine that people are publicly facing saying that they're supportive without actually providing a deeper assistance?
I think as long as it doesn't, as long as their actions and their behaviours support that, from a workplace inclusion perspective, if we're talking about senior leaders, I've known senior leaders, and not naming any names or any organisations, I've worked with many, that, you lowest leader. Now, as you know, that bothers me slightly, but not if their behaviours reflect what they're meant to do and it doesn't have a negative impact on their people. Because some people you're just not going to convince around inclusion for many populations, but what you can convince them on of is what their behaviour should be like to create the right outcomes within the organisation. So it's not as purist as I probably would have been a few years ago, but I think about the impact that some of those individuals can have on people.
Yes, I have experienced that from senior leaders, particularly when it was like asking for money to do something. And they were like, do we really need to do that though? Aren't we just an inclusive organisation already? And so that was a little bit disappointing, I've got to say. But since then, things have changed, and I think if you are able to educate your senior leaders, provide them with the resources to do it, support them, then things can change. Thank you for your cynical question.
Okay, there is a question at the back. Microphone. Just over there. Thanks.
I'm just responding on Ross, you made the point, but we've all been talking about it, is we all live in a gay bubble. And we're talking about inclusion. How much are we actually including other people? We're a very organised group. We're very sort of integrated into society, and it's been an ongoing conversation for many, many years, over decades, etc. But actually, do we check our privilege amongst this? Are we excluding other groups who actually need more of a voice? Just an opinion from the panel.
I think we need to do a lot more to be more inclusive. For example, my family lives in Roselands, and we're in the electorate that I think had the most no votes. And so it's probably just me, my mum, my dad, and my brother and sister who voted yes, no one else. And I think about what is the population of that electorate, and it's a lot of migrants who are conservative because of religious reasons. And I volunteered, calling people up to tell them to vote yes. And I think what we did really poorly was we didn't reach out to people who were of non-English speaking backgrounds. And we just were trying to get yes votes from people who we knew already was going to say yes. That's a good tactic, I guess, in the end. But it's not actually changing and educating people in an inclusive way. I mean, just having materials that are in different languages is such a simple thing to do, and I think we were being really exclusionary by not providing that. And by not going further out west to where we could actually explain what it was about. I think people just didn't really know because they didn't have the resources to be able to understand.
I think we could check our privilege within our gay bubble a whole lot more because it's, I think still the term ally is used to describe people that are outside the LGBTIQ community, where we could be a whole lot of a better ally for the other letters and everything else within our community. So I've always said that allies can be part of any community. I am a trans ally, I listen, I read, I research, I try to understand people's experiences, even though they're not my own lived experience. So I can be more understanding and empathetic and considerate. But I don't think our community does that enough. And I'd probably say I don't do it enough, need to do it more. So having some sort of an initiative for our community to be allies of each other, I think is incredibly important. Because we don't, we've seen so many times over the decades where parts of our big community have been left behind and not considered or not thought of, and we're seeing it to some extent now, where we're not having a massive hoo-ha over trans and non-binary people's rights and inclusion in schools for the community that we did with marriage equality for the L and the G and B.
I just wanted to add, yes, I do actually check my privilege every time I come to one of these events. You can drink a lot of champagne and drink a lot of canapes, and it's very cool to be gay right now in a corporate. And you can come and you, well, I think it is, you know, I do go to a lot of these events. You go and you see the amazing Sydney skyline from a really tall skyscraper from Barangaroo, and enjoy the benefits of being a corporate gay. But I think maybe that's where the corporates need to maybe get a bit more involved in putting their money, not so much into promoting themselves with amongst the business fraternity, but putting their money into community outreach and maybe educating the wider community on LGBTI issues, rather than it kind of being a corporate function.
Yes, and Mary?
I can ask very loudly. Oh, sorry, the live stream, sorry. It's all about the live stream. I think everyone at Bakers might laugh, but I'm obviously one of probably the most out and proudest people at Bakers. I'm gonna take that title. But I actually only came out maybe a year and a half ago, because I was actually outed. Which is unfortunate, but the reaction of my bosses absolutely floored me. It was so inclusive, which you guys might laugh, but they're like 65, 70-year-old white dudes who I never thought that would happen. No offense to anyone in the room who was 65. My apologies, Paul. I love you. But I'm just such a positive reaction made me come, it's going to sound weird, but come even more out. Although my friends joke that they always knew. But I'm just wondering if you guys had any similar experiences, like to end on a positive note, did you guys have those kind of like people that were your champions, or did you have any kind of like those positive experiences, and how we can kind of permeate that, not just in corporate law, but in general in life, like particularly maybe Oliver, if you had like an amazing experience with a particular person, and how we kind of those qualities that people can learn from?
I think personally the best thing that someone can do is just not making it a massive deal. For me, when I first came out, I was really scared everyone was just going to freak out or, you know, treat me differently, but people just treating you exactly the same and saying, okay, I love you, I support you, and even if they don't completely understand, that's okay, and it doesn't make a difference, and still treating you as the friend or family member or colleague that you always were is just such a massive thing, I think.
I had the same experience as you, Anne-Marie, and I didn't really think about coming out, and I'd been at my job for like 3 weeks, and I had a little rainbow flag on my desk, and the partner walks past and goes, I like it. I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. And then, so I just, I guess, started coming out, and I think I have had so many people just come up to me and think, well, oh, that's actually really cool. Like, I'm really glad you're doing this. And I think one of the best experiences for me was when a much more senior lawyer came into my office and was like, and told me about her daughter who was transgender, and that she felt confident telling me that and telling me her experience. That was really awesome, because I think, yeah, you just it's weird to do it in a workplace, because and something like this, when you're at a corporate event, but it's not about your work, it's about who you are personally, and that's kind of scary and a bit different to what you would normally do. But it actually, it's really good because it's who you are as a person, and then you can, yeah, just be more human with people you work with, and I think that's really nice.
Yeah, for me, I sort of kind of have gone into my workplace as just telling myself I'm going to be out. And that started off with, you know, my immediate team and my manager, and just sort of grown. Being involved with the committee at Macquarie has sort of made me grow even more. I've sort of come out on stage to a whole massive conference room of people, and I think one of the things that was really heartwarming to me was after that sort of speech, that was one part of it, was me sort of coming out in that way. So many people around the office just came along and just said, that was so great, it was so good to hear you like just be so brave like that, and just having all these people who you don't visibly know that they're supportive of you as you walk around the halls with them, but because they've seen you do that and they've actually made that effort to come and make a point of telling you that it was made them really happy to see you do that. I think that's really stayed with me, that experience. So I think
I interned at an insurance firm when I was at uni, and that was for about 2-3 months, and then I ended up joining a part of the business on a casual basis while I was still studying, and my first team leader was a gay man, and he was out, he was a little more stereotypical, as you might say it, but he was very, very out to everyone. He experienced no issues that I could see in the workplace, so that was a very, very instrumental early preview for that organisation to me, and very quickly I came out to other people in my team, and of course they already knew, and it was really, really simple. And then from then on, I guess I've kind of had the privilege of working in HR, which is heavily female dominated, and then when you look at the men that are left, you'd probably say about 50% of them are from the gay community. So I'm in inclusive company, shall we say. So I haven't had any challenges, but I've certainly carried with me over the years the impact that early interaction had on me, and how quick I was to be able to feel comfortable and make a decision to just be my whole self at work, and I've tried to be that role model for other people.
Thank you, guys. So this is where we will finish the official question and answer time. That doesn't mean that you are not encouraged to have some more booze. I think there is more booze and ask more questions. But this is where we'll finish. Thank you guys so much for coming here and answering. We have a tiny video present for you. And guys, last thing that I wanted to say, that if there are any students in the audience at Art for Australia, we feel really passionate about helping students. So if you want to chat to us, want to get involved, want to become a part of the fabulous ship that is Art for Australia, please talk to us. Thank you.